science, superstition, and common sense around prayer.
Ooh. Okay, sounds good.
That should be a topic that leaves a lot of room for interpretation, speculation, agitation, and argumentation at our next talking circle. Several weeks ago, we showed a video that had a quote from Albert Einstein about the relationship of spirituality, or religion, and science. Dr. Einstein said, "Religion without science is lame. Science without religion is blind." Now, as brilliant as Dr. Einstein was, I've read about him, and it seems like he had a very firm grasp of common sense and a great sense of humor. The problem was his practical jokes were so high, people didn't know they'd been cracked, you know. So the theme for today, the first principle fundamental to the understanding of the operation of thought is that we're surrounded by an infinite intelligence. The possibility of healing physical disease, changing our environment, attracting friends, and demonstrating supply through the power of right thinking rests entirely on the theory that we are surrounded by an infinite mind, which reacts to our thoughts according to universal law. So, that's from Science of Mind. So is that statement based on science, superstition, or common sense? Well, that depends on what you mean by science, superstition, and common sense. So I looked up definitions of science. Systematic knowledge of the physical or material world gained through observation and experimentation. See, that was my scientific
Voice.
air. Also a branch of knowledge or study dealing with a body of facts or truths, systematically arranged and showing the operation of general laws. Well, that clears it up. So, superstition is a belief, practice, or rite irrationally maintained by ignorance of the laws of nature or by faith in magic or chance. Could be a fearful state of mind resulting from ignorance or irrationality. As someone who's experienced healings at the hands of a native shaman deep in the Amazon jungle, I can tell you superstition can be a very powerful tool. And according to what we just heard, superstition could be that we just don't understand what we're dealing with yet, that science hasn't proven the basis of those circumstances. I believe science will continue and gets better and better to explain things that were considered superstition, because we just didn't understand the laws of the nature that applied to that particular set of circumstances. So what do we mean by common sense about prayer? Many of you know Eric Butterworth in The Universe is Calling says, common sense tells us that prayer is always answered. But the answer, like the results of a scientific experiment, will depend not on what you are hoping to achieve, but on the laws governing the elements you've put together. So Butterworth knew that it's on those circumstances. And the researcher, he doesn't say it, but the researcher has an impact on what they expect to find. So he reiterates that prayer gives us not what we're hoping for, but truly delivers what we expect within our deepest core. And thankfully, some of God's greatest gifts are unanswered prayers that we beg and beseech for, and we don't have a clue what's really our highest best. So thank God we don't always get what we're begging and beseeching for. Now, science looks for hard facts that corroborate or disprove certain previously held beliefs. From Science of Mind, page 74, science is absolute knowledge, insofar as the facts of science are demonstrable. Well, science has come a long way and now gives us valid scientific proof why religion and spirituality have such positive effects on our lives. On the flip side, science has also shown why things like anger are so destructive. There's nothing about anger that actually feels good. But why is that? Anger is our most primal emotion and the most difficult to control. I mean, it's tough. Have you ever been really angry and someone told you, just calm down? How'd that work for you? Did it make you even angrier? Doesn't it seem like when we're angry, nothing works very well when we're angry? Science has proven conclusively in brain research the reason for that phenomenon. In a book called How God Changes Your Brain by doctors Andrew Newberg and Mark Robert Waldman, they explain this problem. When we are angry, we constrict blood flow to parts of the brain and it completely interrupts the functioning of our frontal lobes, which interrupts our ability to be rational. It then becomes impossible to listen to others with any empathy or compassion. In fact, anger releases a cascade of neurochemicals that actually destroy those parts of the brain that control emotional responses. So the anger is not only unpleasant for us and everyone around us, it is harmful to our own brains. So how do we counteract that powerful biological response in our own bodies? Common sense tells us that meditation and spiritual beliefs give us an ability to reduce the impacts of anger. And science has shown us that the more often we meditate, the easier it gets to reduce anger and its impacts. There's a chemical, neurological reason that meditation helps. Scientific studies have proved the positive effects of consistent and intentional meditation. Meditation rewires the brains in highly beneficial ways, including it slows the aging process, enhances social awareness and compassion. All the while, it shuts down the parts of the brains that create the destructive feelings and emotions. When we intentionally and consistently focus our attention on spiritual values and goals, whether through prayer or meditation, we increase the blood flow to the frontal lobes in the area of our brains known as the anterior cingulate, which causes the activity in the emotional centers of our brain to decrease. And over time, we literally rewire the neurons of our brain, and those changes become permanent. So we've always known there was, meditation felt good. Now we know why. Because it is good. And Dr. Holmes, who had some awareness of this, when he told us in Science of Mind, page 152, prayer is essential. Prayer is essential, not to the salvation of the soul, for the soul is never lost, but to the conscious well-being of the soul that does not understand itself. Dr. Holmes had it going. So it's not about salvation, it's about the well-being of ourselves. In his statement, prayer and meditation are one and the same. It is vital to our well-being. We've advocated meditation for years, knowing it was good, but now we can understand the science behind it. Those doctors I mentioned earlier have written the textbook I'm in the class in, and they require research into a thing called PubMed. There are thousands of research cases mapping the brain. They map the brain from, in particular studies, were Buddhist monks and nuns. And they watch what happens. And it's as little as 8 weeks. 8 weeks of consistent, intentional meditation changes their brain. As Raymond Charles Barker tells us in The Power of Decision, the inside of the individual is the explanation of the outside of the individual. The inside of the individual is the explanation for the outside of the individual. I made notes here. Everything else is typed, but when I edited it, oh, there it is. Science has proven hugging heart to heart for only 7 seconds boosts our immune system, strengthens the nervous system, and calms a grieving heart. So today being National Hugging Day, people's health is going to improve. The reason I know it's Hugging Day, National Hugging Day, is I got an email from Dr. Michael Beckwith at Agape today. They're going to do a world record-setting mass hug. They have the people from Ripley's there. It's all pre-set up. Ripley's will document it. They are going for 3 different categories on hugs. One, most international people from different nations in one hug, and I don't remember what the other 2 are. But hugging is good for you. Science proves it. Common sense has told us that for a long time. I don't know of any superstitions about hugging. My father was a wonderful man, but one of the things I inherited from my father was a temper. Now, like my dad, my temper is a mile wide but an inch deep. We don't get mad. We rarely get really angry. We get irritated and frustrated. That's why I say it's a mile wide but an inch deep. That was my dad. And Susan can tell you, yeah, he has a high irritation threshold. But she sees me now, after years of meditation. I can tell you, and even recently I've felt changes. From meditation, I have set my intention. Now, even when I am angry, I'm still able to recognize that I'm being silly. Absolute silly. I may not want to get over it right away, because that part of my brain is slowly coming back. Like, I'm not going to allow anger to keep control of that rational part of my brain. And I know it's destructive. But because of meditation, I can now feel and recognize the difference. So meditation has helped me keep blood flow to the parts of the brain that control logic. And if meditation can do that for me, with my high irritation level, it can certainly work for you. Now, knowing the chemistry of the brain, I know that the more I focus on it, the less I become annoyed. I haven't even yelled at a driver for weeks. I don't know if you noticed that.
I've noticed.
Oh, okay. Okay, now's the fun part. As if that wasn't fun. For the first time, and probably the last time, I'm going to teach you a mathematics equation. Everybody excited? Notes, calculators? C plus B equals A. C plus B equals A. In this equation, C is what we can conceive. B is what we believe. What we can conceive plus B, believe, equals A, what we can achieve. Got that?
Yep.
Guess it's ABC backwards. Maybe it's because I'm dyslexic. That's not only an algebraic equation, it's what we call scientific prayer. Here's a practical example of this formula. This year, somewhere in this country, a 5-year-old girl is going to convince her parents she needs to be in gymnastics. And every 5-year-old girl around the planet who's in gymnastics believes they'll be on the Olympic team one day. Every one of them. They have C down, conceived, they know it. But over time, and it takes 8, 12 more years of work, 5 days a week, 3, 4, 5 hours a day, many, many competitions. And what happens to all those little girls? Some of them stop believing. They give up B. But some don't. They keep going. They work through it. And around the planet, there was probably 100,000 little girls who became gymnasts. And it keeps going. And 8, 10 years later, probably 100 of them around the whole globe become Olympic gymnasts for all the different teams. It might be more. I don't know. But what happens to the ones with the B? They lost their belief. Somebody shattered their dreams. They lost their B. And they never A. They didn't achieve. But if some can, everybody can. And that equation is true for not only all sports, but careers, relationships. Every Little League baseball player in the world wants to be in the big leagues. Every little girl who takes dance wants to be a prima ballerina. But some of them are told, no, you're not the right body type. You're too tall, you're too short, wrong body type. Some are even told they're the wrong color. That's unacceptable. But what happens is they lose B, they lose the belief. When they no longer believe, it's no longer magic. I have a new word, it's called tragic. So my point is, let's encourage each other's dreams. Everybody, especially in children. It's really unbelievable to me that anyone would discourage a child from their dreams. When they came into the world, they came in with certain skills, certain beliefs, certain loves. And those are the areas where they could really shine and be who they are. So whatever your dream is, if you believe in yourself, you can achieve it. When I was in 4th grade, I wanted to be a great drummer. But I didn't believe I could do it. So after a mere 60 years in our drum circle, I'm a great drummer. My dream finally came true. So my point is this, every one of us has very unique gifts. And these gifts come to us for purpose of self-expression, who we are. We're spiritual beings. We all have a gift. We need to find it. And the point on the drum story is there is no point where it is ever too late for fulfilling your self-expression. I'm 66 and I'm back in school, getting a master's degree. It's never too late. Go for it. Be who you're supposed to be. When we give the full power of our mental acceptance to something, that thought is an energy that begins to manifest in our conscious world. But if we inadvertently bring superstition back into our prayer, it creates that nagging sense of separation from spirit. Then we doubt that prayer works. Then we begin to believe in our doubts and fears. But we return to common sense when we recognize there's no magic in the words. We can memorize the most beautiful, flowery phrases in the world for prayer, but they're meaningless without the power of our belief behind those words. It's that consciousness in which we say those words. Our teaching is the moment we have the thought, it's done. We go ahead and express those words, but the moment we think it, it's done. It's a good start when we can avoid wrong thinking, but it isn't enough. We have to learn to practice active, right thinking. A few years ago at the CSL in Vegas, I was talking to a friend down there who's a reverend now, and we were talking about how quickly everything manifests in our lives. And one of us said something that we thought was profound, but neither one of us remembers who said it. We no longer have the luxury of a negative thought. And what does that mean? That means we are really good at manifesting negative thoughts very quickly. They come easy, quicker. Is that because we believe more in the negative? Well, that might be the superstition part or the science part. Here's an example of how quickly people manifest the negative. Suppose we're in a crowd somewhere and you hear someone sneeze. Our normal, superstitious minds might react by thinking, oh great, now what have I been exposed to? And what happens if you don't check that thought? Within a few days, you will express cold and flu symptoms. Now, I'm not saying that's why we all get them. In fact, I'll give you a little side note. Lee Carroll has told us that our bodies absolutely should get a cold every 12 to 18 months because it completely recalibrates our immune system. So if you get a cold, go, thank you, Spirit. I'm even grateful for this. But what happens when we have that negative thought? What have I been exposed to now? Maybe it's the malaria. I mean, someone was talking about malaria. Someone went to the Philippines and came back sick, and they were like, malaria. Well, maybe not. But we are trained to think, cancel, 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 or something that works for you like that. But then we also know that the universe abhors a vacuum. So if you've canceled the thought, replace it with a positive thought. I am one with the source of all creation. I am healthy. I am whole. I am perfect. Or whatever works for you. Again, it's not the words, it's the thoughts. So here's a final quote from Dr. Holmes on how to use the science of mind. The laws of nature are universal. Our use of them is individual and personal. This is the secret of spiritual mind practice. Dr. Holmes had it going. Superstitiously, I think he channeled all this material. But maybe that's common sense too. I don't know. But I believe this is divinely inspired information that we can all use. The laws are universal. The application is personal. Take it, use it, personalize it, express who you are. For each of you are a gift to the universe and your gift to the circle's edge. So thank you for being here. Namaste.
Namaste.
Kate, would you like to give us a blessing, whatever we call that prayer? It's a beautiful expression of thought.
So hearing, feeling Steve's words that are divinely inspired. Rest in that knowledge that you are part of all of that. And I accept for you and for myself that you express that love that you are, that the choice that you make right here and right now is positive, is good, is on track, is filled up and overflowing with all that there is on a conscious level and a subconscious level. That your body reacts to goodness and says more. That your mind says yes to love, to kindness, to yourself and to others, and says yes. That we are not separated, we are not individualized atoms, that we are all together. That what one thinks, the other can think. Holds open the door, the portal, for yourself and others to step through into that love, into health, into happiness. There is a shift in consciousness that I know is happening within myself, so I know it is happening to others. Be that other. Be part of that says yes to love, less negativity. That you are filled up and overflowing with positiveness, with the C and the B, that equals that action, that manifestation of all that you are, all that you expect, all that you believe. That there is no wavering of trust or faith, that you are steadfast in that you stand on solid ground, holy ground. Wherever you walk, Mother Earth is right there in her perfection. You are one with it. You are a steward of her, of all that there is, as you are a steward of yourself. So that infinite wisdom and intelligence that is everywhere present is right where you are, right within. And that others are there to support you. That you open to this and receive messages, ideas, thoughts that improve who you want and are, divine, holy, grace-filled. So the music of the spheres ripple through your mind, through your heart and your soul. You dance among the stars. You are that infinite universe present on this planet called Earth. So remember and remember that knowing that you are filled up with trust, support, and you are never alone. For everywhere you look, there is that manifestation of spirit and form. In nature, in the skies, wherever you are, see and know that that is God. And it is reflected back as a mirror, for that is what is in you as you, right here and right now. So in meditation, in prayer, in thoughtfulness, you express this more and more every day and every second as you remember this, as you go towards the light, in the light, as the light, that you are coming from yourself in wholeness and perfection, in divinity and in love, in every second, in every moment. Awaken or asleep, you are that divinity. So I let this sink in within myself, into that intelligent wisdom and intelligence that is right here where I am. I open to it in a greater expression than ever before, more than yesterday, more than a year ago, and every moment before that. For I am filled up and overflowing, as I know each person here, each person, place, and thing is. And that is recognized by each of us. So expecting good, expecting greatness and success and abundance, I just allow it to be, to unfold, to come forth. And that our hearts is open to receive this and so much more. And together we say,
And so it is.